Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Ampire.
Hey babies. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. I want to ask a serious question. Are we at the beginning of something? Because I'm not sure anymore. And I'm not trying ahead of anything. And I've been trying not to get ahead of anything. Because for so long, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for glory days that I've talked about, that I lived, that I got lucky to go to RFK, and I got to see Riggo and the Hogs and this team just win. And I don't know what's going on right now. It's late. I just witnessed what I think is a very emblematic and memorable, and I'm not sure what I saw, game in Cincinnati. And I don't want to, I've been so trying not to get ahead of myself and not to be fooled, and been around this so long and covered it so long and understand for so long that one game doesn't mean anything. But this one feels different. They go on Monday night. They take on a team that's desperate, that had finished, the whole week was, here's this 0-2 team, but they've been 0-2 5 of the last 6 years. And they don't care. They know they'll be fine. They know they'll bounce back. Doesn't matter. And they're this massive favorite because, well, I don't know. I mean, they have this all-world quarterback and they have this all-world receiver, and they're getting T. Higgins back. And then, if you really drill down and you go look and you go, how are they a Super Bowl contender when they can't stop the run and they can't run the ball? But that's not important right now because the Commanders just haven't been the team that gets scored on immediately and bounces back and then returns serve and goes, all right, what do you got next? And then they don't have anything next. And then the Commanders take a lead, and then they keep scoring, and then they're up 28-13, and then all of a sudden, because it's the NFL and it's Joe Burrow, all of a sudden our defense looks like they're wearing down. It's not the same energy. It's all of a sudden it's a one-score game. Crowd's engaged again. Burrow's been here before. He's done this a million times. This is going to be one of those character building. Well, we were right there, guys. And I'm going to sit here and tell you today, we were right there, guys. We almost won. How awesome is that? How great was Jaden? And this is a new team. And, give them a break. And then they slam the door on them. Is this the beginning of something? I don't know. I haven't seen this in a long time. And, there's perceptions of a rookie quarterback. And you just assume that it's baked in, it's up and down, and it's only 3 games, so maybe it will be. And maybe some defense will figure out, okay, this is actually what he's not good at. So let's try to get him to do the things that he's not good at, and let's see how that goes. And I expect that to happen. And their defense has yet to play a game where they've shown they can make stops when they need to. So, maybe it is still going to be up and down. But this was different. And to sit here and to not feel that way today, I think would be putting your head in the sand. or trying to couch it or trying to feel like it can't possibly be this because it just hasn't been this in so long. And I want to read some stats because I think it's worthwhile just hearing these. The Commanders put out an email after every game where they just put post-game notes. And the first one is as simple as the Washington Commanders defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 38-33 on Monday night. It's their first win since defeating the Eagles in Philadelphia in 2022. And oh, by the way, that's the last time they played on Monday night. But then there's these. And listen to these stats and listen to them closely because they're ridiculous. Washington recorded 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. It's the first time as a team the Commanders have rushed for 3 touchdowns in the first half since 1999. Washington scored the most offensive points, 21, in the first half since week 3 of the 2018 season. 2018, 21 points. Like, not 35, like 21. 3 touchdowns in the first half. It's the first time they've done that in 6 years. Washington has scored on every drive in the last 2 games, excluding kneel downs, becoming the only team since at least 2000 to score on every drive in multiple games, excluding kneel downs. They haven't punted since week 1. And they're writing at least since 2000 because they didn't have time to figure out how long it's actually been since they went through multiple games without punting the ball. And that would be really, really, really impressive if they had some turnovers. But they haven't turned the ball over. They haven't turned it over in 3 games. Since World War II, the Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, have never started a season, 3 games, without turning the ball over. This goes on. Washington is the first team in the Super Bowl era to have back-to-back games with 0 turnovers and 0 punts. What is going on? Because this doesn't feel normal. This doesn't feel like, oh, what a crazy thing. This feels like the beginning. And it's the beginning because of the quarterback, who every week I'm reading absurd stats about him. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, Commanders postgame notes. Quarterback Jaden Daniels completed 21 of 23 passes for a 91.3 completion percentage, the highest completion percentage by a rookie in a single game in NFL history. It is also a single game high in franchise history. He broke a franchise record in his 3rd game, and he became the only rookie ever to do this. And if you watched, you know, Cam Taylor-Britt, that this wasn't a college offense. He, on a 4th down in the first half, found Luke McCaffrey, who hadn't been targeted a week ago, 19, 20 yards down the field. On a 4th and 4, when they easily could have tried a long field goal, they're going, there's no chance that we're even going to do that. We're just going to throw the ball. And he completes it. On a 3rd and 7, in a back-breaking, let's go win the game now, he takes a shot because Cincinnati brings the house, and he throws a dime to Terry McLaurin in the side of the end zone that Next Gen Stats put out a stat about and said the pass that he threw on the 3rd and 7 that was completed to Terry McLaurin for the touchdown that ultimately was the deciding score of the game had a 10% chance of being completed and was the lowest percentage scoring play in the NFL this season. Earlier, I'm reading stats that Jaden Daniels is the first ever rookie quarterback to have 500 plus yards of offense, rushing and passing, and 0 turnovers through 2 games ever. I'm reading his rush yards in his first 2 games as a rookie quarterback are the most by any quarterback ever. The Commanders had never, ever in the history, they're 90 plus years old, started a season with 3 games without a turnover. This is different. This is not what we're accustomed to. This is beyond expectation. This is maybe not going to last because it's the NFL and everything's really close and they could get humbled in Arizona, or maybe not. And I don't know where this is going, but I do know that I haven't been part of something since I've been doing this or covering this team that I feel this way. Jaden Daniels is getting better at an exponential pace that I have not and could not have foreseen. He is completing passes that I can't believe. His calm, cool, collected demeanor is not of a rookie. This is so beyond not too big for him. He goes on the road against a desperate team. They were 0-2 5 of the last 6 years. They had never lost in week 3. That's a weird thing to just point out. But it's mainly because they have an all-world quarterback that is going to get things done. And they're going to win. And this was set up for that. And the odds makers said it was going to go this way. And they won anyway. And for the second straight week, they scored on every single drive that they had that wasn't a kneel down. They had an 8 seconds left in the half against Tampa, and they kneeled down. And they had whatever it was in the first half, and they kneeled down. And every other drive that they ran, they scored on. Whether it was a field goal or a touchdown, they scored on it. They haven't turned the ball over yet, and there isn't a single time this season that Jaden Daniels threw a pass that was potentially going to be intercepted, with maybe the exception of the one that was just a half of a millisecond late to Zach Ertz against the Giants, where he ripped that one away from Jason Pinnock. There was not even a remotely close interception against the Bengals or the Buccaneers, and that was the only thing I can remember that was even remotely close to that. They had a sack fumble in week 1 that they fortunately got back. There was a fumble in week 3 last night that Allegretti fortunately ran down and got back. They're going for 4th downs because they know they can make them. They, on the 3rd and 7 play, on the McLaurin catch, and on the 4th and 4 play, on the last drive that really sealed it, they didn't even look like they were set. Like, they called timeouts. They called a timeout on one of those 2 plays, came out of it, and were so discombobulated that they had to rush to the line to make the snap because they were out of timeouts. And they still ended up scoring a touchdown. They had a 2nd and 21 on this drive, and they ended up scoring a touchdown. The week before, they get the ball back, fortunately, because Malik Neighbors drops a pass. Jaden Daniels has it. The game is tied. He throws a dime to Noah Brown, who's wide open in the middle of the defense, makes a catch. Noah Brown's been here a week and a half. I am, how can I put this? I've seen a lot of football. I've covered this team. I've watched every play that they've had. And I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know what's going to happen next week or the week after that or the week after that. It's not who you play. It's when you play them. You got to get lucky with injuries. They had a bad one tonight with Austin Eckler, got a concussion. But you got to get lucky with injuries. But what I've seen from this quarterback at this point is, as Cliff Kingsbury put last week, beyond expectation. Like, so utterly beyond expectation that I don't even know how to describe it. If this is, and I did a podcast I was on with Michael Jenkins and Fred Smoot called Get Loud last week. The Commanders put it out. And Fred said this, and I go, I couldn't agree more. if this is ground zero, what's the next phase? And now the entire world saw it. Jaden Daniels has never at any point through all of this looked like a rookie. And I don't sit here and pretend that I know more than the scouts or the coaches or anybody, but I know good when I see it, and I know great when it's possible. He has great written all over him, and this is a tough league with tough realities, and he runs, and I'm worried that he'll get hurt, but maybe he won't. And what I've seen so far, 4th and 4, 4th and 2 in the first half, game-winning drive against the Giants. This guy has it. And if he has it, because we haven't had a guy who's had it like this in so long, in fact, maybe since Sonny. I don't know that we've had any, even when we were really good in the 80s with Rippon and Theismann or Schrader and Doug, it wasn't like this. And it's so early, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. And I'm very cautious because I don't want to put pressure on him. But I've seen a lot. And this feels like the beginning. Not some aberration, but the beginning. And if it is, I cannot wait to see where this ride goes. We'll be right back. Very much the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Bram watched the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, we didn't get to do this yesterday, Callow, because we're just all preview mode of Bengals and Commanders. Let's go through the Sunday slate because we were a day late, dollar short, but hey, I was too busy thinking about the thing that was top of mind. So let me start with the Giants. Well. I don't want to toot my own horn here. I think I called this the other day. I said, I don't know about this one. After seeing the Giants steadied the ship, Cleveland seems off here, obviously, early. Myles Garrett's talking about pain in both feet, things like that. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. That one's not going well for them. I'm not surprised. This is one of those. There was one on Sunday that did surprise me. This one didn't, actually. After seeing the Giants in person, seeing Neighbors in person, seeing Jones kind of steadied, seeing their offensive line is better. I'm not surprised, and I have a kind of a funny feeling they're going to be a touch more competitive throughout the year than maybe I think people thought at the beginning of the year.
I think on this one, I looked at it as if clearly you don't pressure Jones, he's actually an all right quarterback. And now that Malik Neighbors has his real taste of the NFL, he's legit. Not to say we were calling him a bust after a game or anything, but it only took him two games to get acclimated, and we saw it again yesterday. This one does surprise me only because is Cleveland just terrible at home now? Because they've lost to the Cowboys and the Giants.
Well, if you ask Goldhammer or their fans, they'll tell you they've been terrible at home for 50 years.
Okay. So. All right. Okay. So, all right. So somehow they have lost to two bad teams. We can talk about the Cowboys, but two bad teams right now, at home. Yeah. So not great if you don't have the home field advantage either.
I will say I got to cite this one more time because I couldn't believe it was true going into the Commanders-Giants game, but remains true now. Daniel Jones has the highest passer rating of any Giants quarterback ever, including Eli Manning, including Phil Simms, for old people like me and Andy, Y.A. Tittle, a better passer rate. I know nobody believes that could possibly be true, but it is. And we've learned this because we're the only team he typically beats. If you give him a clean pocket and he stands on his spot, he's actually deadly accurate. You have to move him around. If you don't move him around, and they, spent some money on their offensive line, they're better up front now. And Cleveland seems like a mess. And I think this is one of those, it's going to go really sideways on them because I'm actually shocked that the Deshaun headlines disappeared the way they did, considering what the allegation was. But if they don't start winning soon and they're in a meat grinder division, I think that one could go really bad. That team could go really bad.
No, agreed. The vibes are not good there. The vibes are what Dallas should have been, and then Dallas locked up their guys, and I think it's a little different. Granted, yesterday was terrible, but I think the vibe, it's a different kind of bad vibe than what we thought Dallas was supposed to be. I think that's what Cleveland's going through right now.
Matt LaFleur is trying to become coach of the year. They
Told
acquire
you.
they acquire Malik Willis. Malik Willis is good in his return to Tennessee. I actually liked what he said before the game where they were trying to, get him to say something bad about Tennessee for trading him. And he said, no, they drafted me. I love the owner. They let me play. They paid me. I got no problem with them, which I think is a pretty mature position to take on the whole thing. And then he's like, and I'm going to make them eat it when I get there and show them what's up. And Matt LaFleur, early front runner, coach of the year for surviving here through 3 weeks with having to go to Brazil, barely losing a game, losing his quarterback and winning 2 games anyway, both of which granted against teams that aren't like stirring the pot too much yet this year, but still one of them's now on the road and they're winning anyway. And they won going away. And I'm with you now on Will Levis, who I liked coming out of college. It's every week he does something absolutely preposterous. And this league is too close. You cannot win when you do things like that.
When I saw yesterday's flub, I was like, you have to keep picking against them until he stops doing it. You have to keep picking against them. I can't believe he's doing it every single week. And not only that, he's doing the thing where he reacts and there's a meme 2 seconds later.
Yes.
Like, I saw it on social media before I saw it on Red Zone. It was like new Will Levis memes dropped and it's him with his hands in his head. It's just like every week with him. You know how this is. Like, a guy could have been solid in college and looked great, but like, sometimes he enters the league and it's just too much for him. And I think that's what we're witnessing with Levis right now.
So on that point, the Bears lose to the Colts. Both quarterbacks are extremely high picks, and neither one of them really looked totally ready for this, albeit like Caleb's played 3 games. He still has had some of those great moments. He's acting a little too Mahomesy still. He's still making big mistakes. It's hard to tell whether you can give him advice or not. Like, he doesn't give off the impression that he wants it from anybody. Anthony Richardson, I'm not surprised. This might as well be his rookie year because, and they said this about him coming in, that like, and if you just go watch him at Florida, he's an amazing athlete, crazy arm, great running ability, but extremely inaccurate. And through the first couple of weeks, throws the ball in places the defense dictate him to throw the ball to. So they're both going to be in progress players. Caleb, I would like to think, as a more accomplished passer, will probably turn the corner sooner rather than later. But the vibes in Chicago are bad. And I said this from the get-go. I think and this is no offense to the head coach there, it wasn't timed up right to have him come in with this quarterback. I think they needed to, whether he deserved it or not, make that change, because if things go wrong, especially with the way they built their team, they're going to fire him because that's going to be the answer. And then we've seen this before when you draft somebody high and then you bring someone else in, but you got to inherit this guy. And then it's a start over process. And then they judge the whole roster. It was a mistake. Like, I think they should have, whether Eberflus deserved it or not, they should have timed up something different with Caleb for this reason alone. Like, if he has a rookie quarterback, a rookie year, and he's having it like in real time, and it doesn't look like it sits well with him, he doesn't carry it very well. This is going to get ugly, like fast. And the body language on them is bad. The whole thing's bad. I don't think that they're a lost cause, like whatever's going on in Tennessee or whatever, potentially Cleveland. I don't think they're a lost cause because I think he's just going to get, I really honestly believe he's going to get better. And I think he's a rookie right now. And I think he's going to get better, but it's not pretty right now. And it's hard to make up for games that you kind of need to win. And that's where they are.
Yeah, I never liked the pressure they put on him right away with getting all those weapons. Granted, it should work out, right? Like, even on a bad day, they should be moving the offense a little bit, but he's had a little bit too much of a stagnant, like too many stagnant drives, I guess is what I would call it with him. And you're right. The body language is weird too. Like, guys, you're 3 games in. Like, we saw this last year, right? With the Commanders, right? It was 3 games in and Terry's making comments about who they want to be. This is not a good look on the head coach. And you honestly should simplify the offense. He should be able to toss this up to a couple of these guys. I know a few of them were injured yesterday, but like, that's where I'm kind of rolling on this. He's got too good of an offense to fail.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, you can't, like, Keenan Allen didn't play again. So Like it's one of those like
Yeah.
you guys are stacked. Like what do you like? This is part of. I mean, this is the good thing and the bad thing. That lineup is stacked. Missing one of those receivers, it's like the Suns missing Beal, Durant, or Booker. And like you're supposed to win anyway. Like you have 2 number 1 receivers at all times. Like you're supposed to win, and it's not happening. So we'll see. I believe it's early on them. I want to wait and see because I think he's going to get better. And I'm not shook on him. Like I think he's going to end up getting good unless his ego gets in the way of either having a relationship with the team or his ego gets in the way of not listening to the advice around him to get better. This is a big league. So we'll see. But like, I'm wait and see hold mode. Like I'm not making any judgments about him yet. I think it's just very early to do that. I think message of the day is Minnesota. They are the early season surprise to me. Not only are they winning, they're good teams. And they went going away on Houston. Their defense is better than I thought it would be by a lot, like not close, like by a lot. So I want to give Brian Flores a lot of credit. So that's amazing. And then I don't know. I mean, I said this last year. This is why, like, I don't know if Robert Saleh is a very good coach because when things go wrong, it totally, he S the bed. When things went wrong for Minnesota last year, KOC kept them together and they were competitive. And without Kirk, not good enough to win, and in a very competitive division, not make the playoffs. But they were still right there and they were in every game. It tells me a lot about the coach and what they're made of and all that stuff. This year, like he's also with LaFleur up for coach of the year because Sam Darnold was not supposed to be their starter and Sam Darnold's killing it. And granted, like, I think he might have the best receiver in the NFL, but that doesn't change the fact that they on both sides of the ball here early. And it's very early because I look at their roster and I go, I don't know staying power, but I want to give credit where credit is due because not only are they winning, they won going away against a really good team the other day. So Minnesota, you've changed my mind here early. I don't think this is a fluke. I believe now that, like, after what I've seen, I now believe in you. Do I think you've got the roster to get to like a Super Bowl? I don't. But in a year where I don't think there's juggernauts in the NFC, because we'll go through some of them that are losing here early or barely getting away with wins, maybe they're the surprise team this year.
Yeah, they also, I think what the more surprising part is, because with Darnold going through the Shanahan car wash, I'm surprised he's this good, but same thing. He's, like you said, he has the number 1 wide receiver maybe in the NFL. It's the defense, man. The fact that Flores not only held them to 7 points, you also had Diggs have his first blow up on the sideline. I don't know if you saw that. Like, he had them frustrated enough that the whole offense had to huddle up on the sideline and basically just start airing things out with each other because that's how much he was stymieing that offense. And that's the first time I think we've really seen Stroud in this version of the offense, obviously, just not be as good as they should be either. I credit this more to the defense because I think they're playing off of each other. Offense just needs to score 1 or 2 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden Flores is dialing it up. They're actually playing really good complementary football right now.
Yeah, they are. And to get back to the point about some of the other perceived contenders, the Eagles are one of them. I think the Eagles, the way Dallas is going, should win the division. I mean, it's heading that way. And what might save them really is that Saquon Barkley deal is turning out to be one of the dumbest things that a division rival could possibly have done, was allow him to hit the market and end up on their rival's team. He won them that game yesterday. Hurts keeps making atrocious mistakes. Sirianni makes absurd calls, absolutely absurd calls, not taking field goals when it's obvious, doing this tush push thing or doing a fake version of this tush push thing because they don't have the line to do it anymore without Kelsey. Like, he got in the way of them winning. Hurts also made a couple of big mistakes. I will give their defense credit. If Jalen Carter is going to be that, which he was on Sunday, if he's going to be that, they're going to be formidable up front. Like, this is the guy that we thought that they drafted a couple of years ago. His first, like what I saw, disruptive Chris Jones-like game. So they're getting by right now. They're just getting by and they're getting in their own way. But Barkley is such a humongous difference maker for them that he made up for all of their failings because they very easily could have lost a game they had no business losing, and he saved them the other day.
No, we have our instance of the roster saving a game from their coach. I think the fact that he went for that 4th down call when it was still only 3-0 was like so utterly ridiculous. I don't understand what he's doing there. They're winning in spite of him. And in fact, once again, I know we argued last week that it was the player's fault, but had he just kicked it, it would have been a better probably chance to win last week, I think, too. I'm just saying it's stacking up here.
I'm not hard on him last week with the because Saquon dropped the pass, like an easy gimme layup. He dropped it, and then people were like, well, you should have kicked. And like, well, how about if the guy caught the ball that the game's over?
Sure. But either way, what I'm getting at here is Sirianni's not making these great decisions, and he's like, losing his mind a little bit on the sidelines. I don't like the vibe for him. I think Eagles fans today are probably starting up what they did last year, where they were freaking out even though they had a winning record.
Yeah, I mean, I think like 3 weeks in, it's hard to buy anybody in the NFC East to take a deep run in the playoffs. Like at this point, right? Like how could you buy any of them to take a deep run? All right. Steelers are 3-0. Cleveland's slipping the wrong way. Baltimore's just 1-2. We know that they have staying power because of their defense. And Justin Fields has been fine for them. Better. They've got better quarterbacking play. I'm open to, because I've said I've been a fan of his for a long time. I think he's got a high level of talent that eventually, if he gets with the right coaches in the right place, he could end up being really, really good. So they're actually scary if he gets better. If he remains kind of a mid-level quarterback with high-end athleticism, then I think in the end they're going to have to win with their defense. But if he turns a corner, watch out. Pittsburgh's going to be dangerous.
I love them. I love their defense. Fields too, though. He's perfect complement to that defense as well. If they only need to score 13 to 17 points, they did 20 yesterday, but they just need to score that many points. I trust that defense to stop just about anybody. Yesterday, they did have help. Our boy Heineke did play yesterday, and it was a little rough. So I will say they had some help with Herbert being banged up, but they are just taking care of the opponents in front of them. That's what Tomlin does. That makes them formidable against anybody.
I think the shock of the day is Denver going to Tampa Bay and winning easily, and their defense totally handling the Buccaneers offense, an offense that we couldn't nor Detroit could handle. So I think that one's the shock of the day, but it's just a reminder in the NFL how close everything is. And when you catch a team that's been down or is 0-2 and has to win, sometimes you get their best effort. And actually, I want to give Bo Nix some credit because I've already, I made my mind up about him. I wouldn't have drafted him, certainly not that high. I never really thought of it. Like as a prospect, I never thought of him that way. He had a very good game against Tampa Bay. And that was a good win for Denver. And I think at home, a bad loss for Tampa, like a very telling bad loss for them.
That was worst loss of the day easily by any team was Tampa at home, especially with how everyone was coming around on them of like, oh, these guys are legit. They should make a deep NFC playoff run. And then the Broncos come to town, way less talented rookie quarterback against that defense. Yeah, that was worst loss of the day.
Unless you count the Raiders somehow getting blown out by the Panthers with Andy Dalton putting up maybe the best stat line of any quarterback this year. And then Antonio Pierce admitting after the game, we had guys that made business decisions on the field, and now we're going to make business decisions. So good luck with all that out there. I have a feeling this is what it is every week. Every once in a while, because they actually have some pretty good players, specifically on defense, they may surprise somebody. And then there could be other days that like they just can't keep their you-know-what together. And the Mina Kimes, Devontae Adams will be traded rumors potentially here. Thanks, Dan Graziato over the weekend. They're not going to quiet down, especially if they're going to be like this. Whether it's up and down or more down than up, it's going to be like this for the next month.
Yeah, the Raiders are one of these teams, though, like heading into that matchup I'm not giving them that much credit. Like, they're still a bad roster. They don't have a good quarterback. I'm not surprised the Panthers beat them. I am surprised they beat them like that, though, like blowing them out. But that was a toss-up game when you look at both rosters, and Dalton was starting anyways. I do think it's shocking. I think it was Rich Eisen that tweeted, he's the first quarterback this year with over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, it's Andy Dalton, which is just ridiculous.
Passing offense has been rough this year around the league. It'll turn. The Dolphins scored 3 points losing Seattle. Granted, Tua didn't play, but I don't know. I'm old enough to remember that Wunderkin's offense worked with everybody, and it's not working with anybody right now, whether Tua or not Tua. So has that one run out of juice? I don't know. And that roster, it feels like the type of group that's like, they like being fast and shiny and scoring a lot of touchdowns. And I don't know how they're going to act if they're not kind of that. So they're a disappointment and a major one, because even prior to Tua getting hurt, they weren't scoring. They weren't really moving the ball that well. So I don't know if people have kind of caught up to whatever he was doing. And now that Tua is out, it doesn't look good for them. So I think they're going to go sideways. Like they smell of a team that's going to go completely sideways.
Yeah, I don't like the way this offense has looked. I will chalk up this. It was a road game to Seattle. We've seen those go sideways for teams for years and years and years. But that, to me, that was like a vibe loss. Like they knew they didn't have Tua, and that team just didn't show up. And then they only scored 3 points anyways in Seattle. Yeah, that just wasn't a good loss.
The 49ers blew a big lead in the fourth quarter to the Rams, who didn't have their star players. So I trust, and they were missing a lot of their guys too, obviously, but like, I trust they'll turn it around because they've just done it too many times. But that was a bad loss. And to the people of Los Angeles, that entire stadium was in 49ers gear. It was a home game. Like, I get people travel and everything, and people made fun of us forever with the Eagles that invaded, the old, formerly known FedEx Field. That was crazy. The whole stadium was wearing 49ers stuff the other day.
I mean, don't blame the people of LA, blame the NFL. We said this from the get-go that this was never really going to work out there. I don't think this is their problem. They did win a Super Bowl, but you and I have had this discussion over the years. That's a Raiders town. It's not even a Rams town or a Chargers town. It's a Raiders town. So I don't know if you're the 49ers fans, you can probably get in there for a good price compared to your own stadium and, take over a shiny new stadium. I'm not surprised at all if that happened.
When the schedule comes out, you look at it and you go, okay, this one should be a win, et cetera. This one could be a loss, et cetera, et cetera. I guarantee you when the Lions looked at their schedule, they looked at 2 home games, Rams, Buccaneers, and went, those are going to be hard, but we should win them because they're at home. And then we're going to go win in Arizona. And that was like, I want to give them credit here because this is a better win than I think it looks on paper, just the way Arizona's been playing. And I think I said this on Friday. I said, you're going to find out if they've really turned a corner in moments like this, where they go on the road against a team that's playing maybe a little above its skis, but is definitely better than people think it is. And this is where you find out, are they for real and are they tough? And can they take their game on the road? Because it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And they shut that offense down. They're having fun. They're doing laterals and hooking ladders and stuff like that. And it's working. And it was funny. I was out with Logan Paulson and I was talking to him about that play. And he goes, do you know how many times you have to rep something like that to actually feel comfortable doing it? He goes, these guys are on the same page. He's like, you don't just do like everyone thinks the Chiefs are just messing with people when they do stuff like this. He goes, you know how many times they rep that before Andy Reid would ever let them actually call it? Like, they don't do that stuff on a whim. Executed to perfection. They are now 3 weeks in my opinion, the front runner in the NFC. In my opinion, that's who I think it is. That division is shaping up to be really, really competitive. Maybe a little bit more than I thought with Minnesota is going to be this, but I'm now Minnesota. I mean, Detroit's turned the corner for me now. I'm a full-on believer of them, short of a lot of injuries happening, that they're going to be there in the end.
Oh, yeah, and also look at their first game now against the Rams. The Rams had their stars, took them to overtime, and even the Rams took care of the Niners yesterday. You're starting to do the circle thing of like teams that beat other teams and look back at the losses. Even that win looks a little bit better now, looking at how the Rams eked that one out. Once again, though, I will flip this over to the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are actually pretty good. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but they're starting to move the ball a little bit. Kyler still makes some dumb throws here and there, but like all he needs to do is start putting it in a position where Marvin Harrison can catch these things. He had one yesterday where he threw it over his head and everybody was like, I think it was, who was on that game? I forget who was calling that game. Whoever said it was like, all he has to do is put it in his radius. He's going to start catching these things. So I think they were actually right there. They could be dangerous. That division's going to be tough, though. I'm with you on Detroit, though. They'll be fine now. I'm not worried about them anymore.
Yeah. The Sunday night game saw the Chiefs get by the Falcons. There was a preposterous no call on a pass interference in the end zone late in the game that I don't know what the refs were looking at. And maybe because like earlier in the drive, they'd called 3 penalties on the Chiefs and they just put their whistles away, but that was a clear pass interference that should have been called. So it should have been first and goal at the 1. The Chiefs are winning without a downfield passing game or really profiling Kelsey. So, but they're winning and they did it. And so, I'll give them credit. They're figuring out how to win. And at some point, Mahomes and the offense is going to break out. It hasn't happened yet. That's what's scary about them. That's coming. It's just a matter of when, but they win anyway.
The Falcons once again, though, on that drive to come back and win the game, got a bunch of calls. Not all of them, I would say were clear cut, but they got a bunch of calls. So that makeup call, those were makeup calls for the Pitts pass interference. What I would say is this, though, the Falcons play calling on that last drive was ridiculous. I don't know, they were just going to the outside. They stopped running towards Jones. They were doing all these dump offs. The Falcons offense needs to get it figured out a little bit more too. I couldn't believe how vanilla they looked that last drive. And I'm not surprised the Chiefs won. I will say, though, the Falcons, good effort. Two thumbs up on your effort for that one.
And I will question, Raheem Moore should have kicked a field goal on the 4th down to make it 22-20. Considering how his defense had been playing, there was way too much time left on the clock to feel that desperate to do that. It was too long of a play, and he should have kicked there. I don't know whether what, but just think about, it had things played out in almost the exact same way. They would have had a chance to kick a game-winning field goal. So it was a mistake. Yep. All right, last one is I'm feeling like Stephen A. Smith now. Dallas's defense is not even remotely close to reminiscent to what we've seen over the last couple of years. And things change, and I assume they will. DeMarcus Lawrence is playing his you-know-what off. So is Parsons. The rest of it looks lackluster and bad. And honestly, if Baltimore doesn't totally misplay an onside kick, I don't think this score would have ended up looking as close as it did, because that was domination, both sides of the ball. And somehow it was like the foot got taken off the gas, and the score to me looks 8 million times better than what it really was. And so Dallas is at what I thought might happen to them. If they go the wrong way early, they're at the crossroads. They are the team that gets made fun of nationally. They're going to hear it. And if they don't win quick, and they got to turn around and play a Thursday night game, if they lose that game, it's going to get ugly fast down there. Really, there's going to be finger pointing like crazy down there.
This was like the worlds colliding at the end of that game. It was either Dallas was going to have an amazing comeback and the Ravens were going to collapse, or it was going to be the other way around, where the Ravens get their first win and Dallas starts hearing it from. It was great. I was like, this is cinema no matter what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because either the Ravens go to 0-3 and they start freaking out and starting to talk about Harbaugh, or the Cowboys come back and all of a sudden it's we them boys for, the next 4 or 5 days, or whatever it's going to be. So I was loving the end of this game, but Dallas just does not have it right now. And I don't know how you fix it. Zimmer is they keep going to Zimmer on the sideline. Those sideline shots of Zimmer look weird too. They must know that it's just not clicking right now. And that's why they're harping on that storyline right now. I will say this, though. The Ravens do this. It's got to be the first half of every year. They go out to these amazing starts in the first 2 quarters, and then they just kind of fall apart for the second half of games. It's really weird. They flashed a stat that Harbaugh has the most, I think it was the most blown fourth quarter leads since 2010, far and away. He is the most of them. Granted, how many coaches have been around since then? Yeah, probably not a lot, but it was a crazy stat.
All right, we'll probably talk more about Dallas later in the week. Let me take a quick break. Bram watches show ESPN 630 at Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Obviously, I wasn't around the last couple days because of Commanders and Bengals, so I know I'm a little late weighing in on this. And considering I've been in total football brain, I know I'm not the perfect person to weigh in on this. But CJ Abrams being demoted, not because of his performance, but because of, at bare minimum, a terrible lack of judgment in Chicago, because they're not denying the report that he was in a casino in Chicago until 8 a.m. on a game day of a day game, of which it sounds like to me, though, and again, I'm not well sourced here, but I talk to a lot of reporters all the time, especially ones from, major sources in our area. And their first reaction when I saw this over the weekend was, he's been warned about stuff like this. Maybe not to this extent, but he has. And I firmly believe that if this was a one-off, they wouldn't have demoted him and embarrassed him. But I'm guessing that it wasn't, and that's probably true. And there probably have been some concerns about his behavior off the field, especially on road trips. And this was a message to him to get his you-know-what together because they need him. They need him to be good in the future. He may not be their stud star. We're seeing that in real time with a couple of other players, but they need him to be good. And if this is going to build back to where Rizzo and they believe it's going to be, he's a big part of it. And so I'm hoping, because, I love our teams, I'm hoping that this is a wake-up call for him and that he becomes either more of a professional or deals, if there's something there, deals with something he needs to deal with. And I'm not saying there is, but I'm like, I've been in casinos till 8 a.m. too a long time ago. Okay. Like, not anymore, but I have. And it doesn't mean I have a gambling problem. However, I want to make sure that that's not what we're dealing with here. And whatever is going on with him, that hopefully he has a little time away from all of this. And I think they did the right thing by sending him down and sending a message to him that this isn't going to fly if you're going to be a prominent representative of our organization moving forward.
Yeah, this is the culmination of clearly more than one event, right? It's pretty much what everyone was alluding to, as you said. And these are the situations that I always like to point out. Here's a guy in his young 20s, and I always like to say to everybody, go rewind of how you acted in your early 20s. There were things you did that you regret. There were things you needed to learn, right? And I think this is the Nationals saying to him, we need you to clean this up right now because we think you're a really, really good player. He made the All-Star game this year, for God's sake, and they're sending him down before the end of the year. This is them saying to him, we believe in you, but this is kind of the final straw. Just because the season is lost and there's a week left doesn't mean you go out until 8 a.m. on a day game in a city where people are going to recognize you too. Like, it's not like they were nowhere. They're in a major city where people know who he is, and he's recognizable because he is one of the few stars on this team. He's an all-star MLB player here. I'm looking at this as hopefully he has learned, but there's that now cloud over it of, is he going to have a problem? Because look, I kind of joked about it with friends over the weekend, that people that were texting me and stuff. I was like, look, if he was hitting 350 in the second half, team probably kind of looks the other way or slaps him on the hand here. But because he's hitting 205, and this is clearly not the first instance of this, they're going, we can't have this both ways. You can't party up and be, a crappy hitter on the side. So right. I think that's a part of this as well. Like, you can get away with this if you're good, but this second half of the season for him has not been good.
And it's also, listen, like, we found out about this, or people hear things about this, and now it's prominent because people saw him and it's reported. Well, his teammates know he's doing this. Yeah. So the team has a responsibility to take a stand and go, this doesn't fly for us organizationally. And, so I am, because I'm pro our teams, like, I hope that this is a young person who made a bad decision, maybe has made a few bad decisions on in a year where the results kind of don't matter anymore because the record is what it is. And it was already kind of set in stone what they were going to be when it all started. And I get it. He's blowing off some steam. I mean, it's a long year. But I'm hoping we're not talking about something else. And there is also a level of responsibility that you need to learn. And, it doesn't matter what your record is. And in terms of everybody else coming up here, you need to set an example. And that's not the one we're looking for. So I'm hoping that, all's well that ends well when we get around to spring training again. And he's going to have to address this. I am hoping we're not talking about a bigger problem, that he's just being irresponsible. And if he's being irresponsible, then I'm open to him maturing and just being a different, professional. And I'm hoping that that's all it is. And I do think the Nationals, all in all, from what I know, did the right thing here to say something to the rest of the team, show them this isn't okay. And for him, get your, what together, because this isn't a joke up here. This isn't a game to us. We pay you millions of dollars. We expect a level of professionalism out of you. And this is how quick things can change if you don't show it.
I always look at Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo as good cop, bad cop. Davey Martinez is always the guy that wants it to be a family and talks to these guys like they're, like his children, essentially. I mean that in a good way, not a bad way. And then you have Rizzo, who, when he has to go no nonsense, he does it. I'll always rewind to 2018. I don't know if you remember this, but remember, they were having a tough year. The All-Star game was here, but they had the stacked lineup with Murphy, Harper, Turner, Rendon. It was a year where they should have been really good, but injuries stacked up. And there was that instance where Sean Kelly made a bad pitch and he slammed his glove on the mound. And right away, Davey took him out. And then Rizzo cut him. He DFA'd him. And Rizzo had a quote that I'll never forget. He said, "You're either with us or you're in the way." And that quote has always stuck with me. And I think that's exactly what he's doing with CJ here is he's going, we know the season's over with, dude, but don't be in the way, essentially. And Rizzo, I've always commended him for being kind of that bad cop when he needs to be. And I think this is just one of those instances. But CJ's young. I think everyone needs to realize that. He's still a young kid in this league. Don't judge him too hard on this.
All right. We'll do this again tomorrow. Bring about your show, HB at 6:30 Sports Capital.